All right, welcome. Hello, everybody. I'm Drew Hornbein with Better Together, and this is Shiny Red Copy Counseling with Sara Rosinski. Sara, why don't you introduce yourself, and then we'll just get started.
I am Sara Rosinski. I am a freelance copywriter. My company is Shiny Red Copy, and I'm a Capricorn.
Ooh, cool. Well, we've got Michelle and Margaret on the line, and Margaret has a roofer banging over her head, but also has a question. If you can ask that, Margaret, that'd be great.
Yeah, so I am transitioning from the field of museums to UX, and I've been doing some freelance work as a UX designer and researcher, but I'm really interested in copywriting, both as a way to supplement my income while I'm job searching, and also as a way to up my skills and add it to my resume so that I'm a more marketable candidate.
Great. You said that you've been in the museum world for a decade. Are you interested in continuing in that arena, even with your copywriting maybe?
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely an option. It's a field I know quite a bit about, and I have a lot of contacts in that field. But I'm not specifically focused just on that field.
Yeah, just because if there is an area that you are interested in and knowledgeable about, you can find work more easily if you can concentrate in a particular area. That is the common wisdom. It's not necessarily something I'm always comfortable committing to, but the more you can be known as being, I'm the copywriter for screwdrivers, I'm the copywriter for tap dance shoes, or whatever it is, people are gonna, in that vertical, are more inclined to come to you. So now is sort of a good opportunity to think about, if I had to focus on something, what is the thing I would enjoy the most writing about, or what do I know that other people don't? You'll just find work is a little easier to get that way, and you just get better at it in a particular arena.
I often hear in freelancing, they always talk about niching down.
Yeah.
Is that what you're getting at?
That's what I'm getting. That's the term. Yep. But again, like, I would understand if you didn't want to commit to something, but just keep it in mind about, it's sort of, to me, the joy of freelancing is really paying attention to what I do and I don't like. And it is just as fun to say yes to some jobs as it is. I also like saying no to other jobs, because I think, you know what, that is not something that I want to learn how to do better. That's not a thing, So it's just a little, especially if you have those contacts, it'd be nice to reach out to everyone in your virtual Rolodex and say, just so you know, I'm available to, I guess you're aware of what folks in the museum world need, newsletters, grant proposals. I'm not sure what kind of copywriting you'd like to focus on. Do you have an idea?
No, I'm not exactly sure what a copywriter does. I mean, do they write? Do they correct grammar? Do they, like, what part in a process do they work on? Like, is it they get stuff that's already formed and they just make it better, or they actually come up with stuff themselves?
Definitely the latter. Most of what I do is starting from scratch. That's most of what I do. But there are those times when someone says, I have a website, but it's terrible, do something with it. And so, that might get into heavy editing or rewriting. If you really are just looking at a finished document and making it grammatically correct and maybe fixing disastrous sentences, if you're really just fixing things, then you're getting more into the area of being an editor, which can be great. They're just different things. So again, I guess, think about what you want to do. I will say this about copywriting that I'm not sure everyone in the world knows. It's confusing. It's confusing because copywriting can be spelled 2 different ways. And sometimes people get what I do confused with legal copyright, which it's not related at all. That the copy business it has this long etymological history, but you're basically a writer for hire. You're basically a pen for hire. I mean, I will tell you some of the stuff I've done over the past couple of weeks, and you can think about whether that would be your interest. I've been doing something I particularly love, which is naming companies. I love coming up with names. For me, the fewer the letters in what I'm working on, the happier I am, because I love those constraints. I love it, working on a tagline. I've been doing that lately too. How can I encapsulate this entire company's, reason for existing and point of difference in 4 words at the most? To me, I love that. But then there are folks who need blogs written. There are companies that need advertisements, brochures, email campaigns. So it's, words for money. Any words that are going to help a company or a person explain themselves, sell their services, all that stuff. And you may want to, there's a group on Facebook, if you're a Facebooker or willing to do this, it's called the Copywriter Club. And I am a member of that. I will say that what I do on a daily basis is very different from what most of the people there are doing. They're doing a lot of you'll see like email funnels, and by that I mean, moving a customer from, being sort of interested towards a sale with each subsequent email. So there's that. There's direct response copywriting, which is, that might be something you get in the mail. The reason it's called direct response is it is gauged by literally the sale it does or does not make. It's not just reinforcing a brand. It is really driving an action. There are people who make sick money doing that. They write 10,000 word letters to people to sell them on investment opportunities. By the way, this is not what I do. It is not my interest, but there are people making bank doing that. And that's a science, and it takes a lot of practice. I'm not saying it would be easy. But anyway, if that's something that interests you on any level, you can learn about it by joining the Copywriter Club and kind of just seeing what other people are up to. There is a group on LinkedIn called I think it's called Advertising Copy. It's a group. Again, you'll just learn from what other people are doing and struggling with, and ask questions and figure out what you think might interest you.
Sarah, I've got a question related to that. You mentioned that the copywriting for the direct response was like a science. Is there, I feel like we're kind of getting into what it is to be a copywriter, which I think is great. And I wonder in that, is there an aspect of copywriting that deals with like data and analytics and like seeing how well certain verbiage works?
Yeah, I mean, that's what digital enables you to do. If you are writing emails, myself included, I typically will create multiple subject lines and tell my client that my client can do an A/B or an ABCDEFG test and see what performs best. It's so easy to implement, and why not go with the one that's getting more people to open it? So there's that. Yeah, you can data. Now with print, it's going to be different. You're not going to know as well. Direct response print, it's pretty old school, but there might be a 1-800 number. How many people call this particular number with this particular coupon code? That's how you know that your ad is working. But there is a spectrum of reasons to have copywriting. And on the one hand, there's branding, which is just reminding everybody why you exist, how you're unique, why you're likable over here. And then there's really that hardcore sell. And I'm somewhere in the middle. I often find myself writing a call to action, which is, this offer ends soon. You're trying to get someone to take an action, but sometimes you're just branding. You're just being a consistent voice that you don't want people to forget about. Or sometimes it's packaging. That's another thing I love to do, which is writing copy on packages. There might be a little bit of a push to a sale there. There might be just, this is why you've always loved eating this particular candy bar, Yeah, so does that answer your question? Data matters.
I'm really interested and curious about, you've obviously been in the field for a while, but as someone starting out, how to find opportunities that really fit the kind of interests that a person might have. So you had mentioned, for example, that you really enjoy naming companies and coming up with taglines. You really enjoy constraints. That's kind of more in the category that I fall into. Like, if you just give me a blank page and you're like, write about this, I'm going to kind of sit there for a really long time and not maybe produce the best work that I could do. But if you give me like these constraints, like this needs to be, 900 words or less, or this needs to get us from point A to point B, some sort of goal in mind, like I really work well in those situations. So how would somebody starting out in the field kind of better understand like what their strengths are, and then where they can find those types of opportunities?
Okay, so there are kind of two things I want to address. One is appreciating kind of a roadmap or a goal when you write. And if you should always work with some kind of a map like that. I typically find myself working from a creative brief that tells me, here is who we're competing with, here is our time frame, and here is what we want people to do. Here is the space allocated to the ad that you're going to be writing. You know what I mean? So there should be these very well-defined guideposts. The challenge with getting started as a copywriter is the thing you need is experience and proof of that experience to get more work. And the only way you can get the experience is if you have work. So there's kind of, you start off with a little bit of a catch-22. A couple of ways to get around that are, there are services online. You can hear the hesitation in my voice. There are places like Fiverr and Upwork and places where you can throw your hat into the ring and offer to do something for less than the other guy. I, as a rule, really resent that platform and don't care for it. But I just want you to know about it. It's also, I find, a lot of effort to get a job. You're literally, it's like you're competing with every other copywriter out there. So I mentioned that with a ton of caveats. I just want you to know about it. What I always tell people starting out as copywriters to do, which is what I would do, is think about a charity that you'd like to help and take a look at what they're doing and think about how you might help them and say, I noticed that your website looks like it's 15 years old. I would be happy to rewrite it for you, if you don't mind me telling other people that I've done this. That way you get practice, they're typically receptive to it, and at the very worst, you're helping a cause that you care about. There are so many different reasons they might want you. They might be having a fundraiser. They might need to do advertising for it. You might know of an annual event that they're holding. You can offer to help them make invitations. Like the sky is the limit. And they may even have some money that they can pay you. So because you want to build a book, you want to be able to say, and when I say a book, back in the day, you would literally have like a portfolio that you would carry from ad agency to ad agency and show it. And now you're building a website probably and saying, here's a list of the clients I've served. Here are the verticals that I've done work in or whatever. Or, just so you can honestly say, I've worked on bullet point websites, bullet point emails, bullet point advertising, bullet point digital campaigns. Yeah, so that is what I would do. And I'm going to go a little further and just say, I've just always told people this. Even like newspapers have remnant space. So they, when they lay things out, they might have a quarter of a page that someone backed out of, or they just might have an opportunity to slide a philanthropies ad in there. So you could make an entire portfolio of ready to go ads for a cause you care about in standard sizes. And this goes for digital too. There are very standard sizes of banner ads and shapes that go on websites. Give them a library of those things. They can provide them to their local newspapers, and you'd be amazed. They'll get traction. They'll get seen. And that's what I would do.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that, you're absolutely right about that. Some of the strongest pieces in my portfolio are things that I've done as a volunteer, and that's fine. It's not like I'm working for free because I can't get any work. I did this because I cared about the organization and I wanted to help. But it's a really good opportunity to get some experience and have some pieces for your portfolio.
Yeah, and they tend to be a little more permissive. They need help, so they're not.
Yes.
And this is a terribly selfish thing to say, but it tends to be very emotional content. It tends to be something that matters. You're not just selling
Exactly
shampoo. You're saving someone's life, or you're rescuing puppies or whatever, and so you can really go to town.
So in addition to just having these as examples of your work, like let's say I went to like the local humane society and I said, hey, I'd really love to offer my services doing some copywriting for your website. For me, that would be most relevant to my career in UX. How would I validate the impact of that copy if it's just sort of not necessarily, not all of it's going to be a call to action, right? Some of it's going to be informational. Some of it's going to be like restructuring the content. So beyond just having it like, here's a screenshot of, the before and the after with this copy, like, how do I show that it did anything?
So first of all, major kudos to you for thinking that way. That's a very good idea to think about, how am I going to validate, how am I going to prove that this worked? I would recommend having an interview or a chat with your client at the outset and say, articulate to me why you think this isn't working. All of this is going to be fodder for a case study. Maybe record them. One, just sweet little soundbite like, nobody knows what page to go to, or nobody visits us, or whatever the issue is. So then you have that documented, and then you're going to work your magic, and you're going to make something that is usable, that gets more traffic, that gets more responses, whatever it is, and then speak with your client at the end and get some more of those tasty sound bites. And those are going to be great on your website. If all they would have to say is one sentence, like, we've doubled our adoptions, or, whatever it is. It doesn't have to be a long, data packed case study. I don't think people spend the time, going through every datum. But if you can just get some salient emotional points with a name behind them, oh, that'd be great. That would be great. Be a learning experience for you. Such a win-win-win.
So I like the sort of direction you're going with like having a video and recording, maybe someone at the Humane Society being like, asking them like, why isn't this working? What are your goals for the copy? But I also kind of think, just coming from a UX perspective, if I had access to a few people who have used the website, like end users, and saying like, hey, tell me about your impressions of the site. What were you able to find, not able to find? And then maybe doing a follow-up. So it's coming from both perspectives, from like the perspective of the business and then also from the perspective of the user. Because like, just in my experience working in museums, there were some museums that would be like, well, a field trip to X museum will increase your SAT scores.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, reading this copy from the Humane Society will increase adoptions. It's not like a one-to-one, like correlation is not causation, right? So I don't think you can make like huge claims, but I think that this anecdotal information from like two different types of stakeholders is maybe a very good way to, like you said, validate the impact of the copywriting.
Yeah, and another thing too, it's great that you have that UX ability, is be thinking about processes that you want to formalize and even brand. Pay attention to the way you interact with your client, and the ways that you pull information out of them. You might have a form that they fill out, or be creative. Maybe you, I'm just going to make something up. Maybe you say, we have a 30-minute sprint orientation. When I work with clients, we're not going to spend more than 30 minutes. I just want you to just download or upload or whatever, all of your complaints, concerns, stream of consciousness. That way, I'm not going to take more than 30 minutes out of your day, and I'm going to hear your most pressing pain points. I'm just making this up. I'm just saying, if you can create a process, that's going to be another way that you can sell yourself.
Yeah, I just want to reflect that the UX plus copywriting is like an awesome niche.
Yeah.
Great angle to sell yourself as.
Do you have any like resources or like associations, like websites, books, courses online that I might look into in terms of UX copy? Like, I know that copywriting and UX copy, well, I've been told, I don't know, that they're different disciplines, and I'm not exactly sure why or how.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm interested in delving into that a little bit more. Like, I know early in my career, specializing can be kind of like a double-edged sword, because it can make me like really valuable in the market, but also there are fewer jobs available. But copywriting and sort of crafting a message is something that I really enjoy doing. So at the risk of making myself, sending myself off to a little iceberg and being non-employable, I'd like to explore this topic a little further.
First of all, do not worry about that. That is the biggest iceberg. You're going to be fine. If you UX copy, you'll be fine. I don't focus on UX, so I'm not super familiar with those resources, but it would take you about 10 minutes to figure it out if you go to the Copywriter Club and throw that question out there. I find that one thing leads to the next. You listen to one podcast, and then you find one expert, and then you follow them on LinkedIn, and then you find out that the associations they're in, and it really will take no time at all. Drew actually may have more UX association information than I do.
No, I don't, but I do have a plug for tinyredcopy.com/resources, where you can get Sarah has a whole list of copywriting resources, and as mentioned before, you mentioned a few like Facebook and LinkedIn groups, and I'll be sure to put those in the show notes, and publish that on the Better Together blog.
Okie dokie. Yeah. Yeah, they won't be, the resources I've listed are not UX focused, but none of them will hurt. There's some good resources there. They're largely about grammar, spelling, that kind of thing, but
Do you even want to posit like how it's different, like UX writing from copywriting, or are you just like, I'm not?
I don't typically work with developers. The user is going to log on, and the first thing the user is going to see are these 3 buttons, and what should these 3 buttons say? That is not my typical job. I definitely get into that sometimes, even with my own stuff. What is this button going to say? How can it be inviting and personal and all of that? But I'm not working hand in hand with developers in the way that a real UX copywriter might be. I typically do more kind of the things I've mentioned: advertising, packaging, naming, tagline, websites, emails. Those are the areas I find myself working the most.
So I wanted to ask a question on a topic of sort of getting the resources and expertise, getting the work to show that you have experience. I know that you, Sarah, put out really excellent little like grammar hints and tips on social media that are amazing. I wonder if you have any tips on putting that kind of stuff together, because my thinking is that showing that you have some expertise. So for instance, talking about copywriting and UX, like there's probably something in there, and I wonder if you just have any tips on producing that sort of content. And
that's probably how Margaret found me, or how we know one another, these lessons that I put out every day on LinkedIn. And those are, again, a win-win-win-win-win, spelled W-I-N, not W-H-E-N, because I am demonstrating that I know what I'm doing because I happen to be writing. People are learning, which is nifty. I'm getting to know people, so presumably if the day comes that they need copy, they sort of feel like they know me. And I would say that Margaret or anyone else, and the other thing that's a win about that is I literally enjoy doing it. I have so much fun being my own client and doing exactly what I want. So Margaret also might, think about, I hear just some ideas, mistakes that she sees too many people making in UX, pitfalls that are common. She could take screenshots of those, not with a goal of shaming anyone, but with the goal of sharing a pitfall and how to avoid it. So every time she comments on, if she were to share that and say, here's how you can avoid this problem, then she's showing her expertise, she's saving people from some pain, and she's reinforcing her authority. So, and then, every time you do that, you're building on a library that can help you help a client in the future. So, yeah, it's kind of the really cool thing about freelancing is you get to craft your career exactly the way you want it to be. So every day is an exercise in what makes me happy, what fascinates me, what do I want to learn more about. And I will tell you, I know way more today than I did 2 years ago, because all I've been doing is focusing on the things I want to know more about. And it's so fun. So you, Margaret, might do the same thing. Like, I can't imagine exactly what it is, but maybe with museums, maybe it's I'm trying to think if there's a particular challenge that you've seen museums face over and over again. You might really set yourself down and think about, how might I solve that? How, maybe I could, have, you could brand it, Margaret's tips for more vibrant museum communities. I don't know. Drew is laughing at me. I see it. But yeah, thumbs up. Anyway.
What do you actually use for software and for making those tips that you put on LinkedIn?
That was another thing that I did because I'm my own boss. When I first started, I thought, I have always wanted to be able to use Adobe Suite. I will never be a professional designer like Michelle. I have way too much to learn, but darn it, I'm going to learn as much as I can. So to answer your question, I use Illustrator for those, but just as easily a person could use Canva, which is free, amazingly powerful, amazingly flexible. It's crazy that it's available. There are packages where you have to pay a little bit of money, but for free you can get away with tons. So yeah, I use those as my Illustrator practice, but I don't know that everyone is quite as fussy about kerning.
I wanted to return to something that you touched on, and it was about when you have a blank page in front of you, and you described it as creating a map. Can you go into a little bit more of your process when you're presented with maybe a vague assignment and a blank page?
How would I deal with a vague assignment, or how do I just get started with writing?
How do you get started with writing?
I am not the first writer to tell you this, but I will reiterate it. Just start writing. Just get it down. And boy, word processing makes it easier than ever. I will use a vulgarity and just say, barf on the page. Just put it down. It is so easy to clean that up later. Everyone writes differently, but I think this is really sound advice to just not hold back and assume. I just read an Anne Lamott chapter about shitty first drafts, it's called, which was shared with me with Johanna Walker. Shared with me by Johanna Walker. Anyway, yeah, get it down and just give yourself forgiveness and understand that it's not going to come out of you perfectly, and then you can fix it up later. Another really good thing to do is walk away at a certain point. If you find yourself getting stuck, another beauty of being a freelancer, go for a walk the dog, make some popcorn, whatever you need to do. Come back and you will see everything so much more clearly, and it will be so much more evident what needs to change. I shared a piece of advice 2 weeks ago in this forum that it's my personal approach. If there is copy that I think is kind of good, but isn't really working, but I don't really want to get rid of it, I copy it and I put it at the very end of my document in an area that I call purgatory, which just means like, this might have a home later. I don't want to get rid of it, but it's not really serving any purpose right now. So that helps me.
Yeah, I just wanted to sort of agree with Sara, I guess, which is like, I discovered that I tend to write backwards, and I just don't worry about it. I just get it down, and then I start rearranging the paragraphs. It's like, wait a minute, this should be up at the top. And the other thing about walking away is absolutely essential. One of the things I love about the way that I'm working now is that, since I'm my own boss, I'm the master of my own fate. I get stuck on something, I take a walk.
Yeah.
And I get 2 blocks down the street, and I'm like, oh, I know what I need to do. And then, I finish my walk and I go back and I can fix it. And it sounds simple, but it's something to keep in mind because it's so valuable, and you are not wasting time.
Yeah.
It's part of the process. And
Yeah.
it's also, if you suffer from stress and anxiety the way I do, it's really important to get out and take that walk. So
Sound advice for sure.
My biggest challenge right now as a freelancer is that I am a very collaborative person. I am an external processor. So working on my own is a real challenge. And there are some things where I'm really good at, and there are other ways and places that I'm finding I struggle to finish the process. As a freelancer, how do you get help when you need help? Not just encouragement, you know what I mean? Or what's this grammar rule? But if there's really some part of the process that you're struggling to get through and you maybe want to try to, have someone else do it for you or do it with you, how do you do that?
Let me make sure I understand what you mean. Because there are different forms of working with other people. There's bouncing ideas around and brainstorming together. There's also parts of work that I don't want to do. And I'm hearing you say that working alone is a challenge. So do you prefer to collaborate? Is that what you're talking about? Or
I'm talking about both instances. I'm talking about areas in which it's much easier for me to feel creative and to be sort of productive when I have not just a shared working space, you know what I mean, but someone who I'm actually working with or bouncing ideas off of. And then there's also the acknowledgement that I have weaknesses, I know my weaknesses, and then maybe there's things I just don't like doing. And so how do you as an independent contractor, as a party of one, kind of deal with those situations as well?
this is where Drew could certainly make a plug for Better Together, right? Do you want to? Well, so the Better Together Association exists to address exactly what you just talked about. It gives camaraderie. It gives complementary expertise. So if you're very good at one thing, not so good at something else, if you're in this association, you can go into the Slack group and say, can anybody help me with this? You can, get friendly with people who have complementary skills. I will tell you that I just did a self-promotional project where I had, two different people look at what I wrote to make sure I didn't make any mistakes. So because I know people, so I do sometimes, and I just leaned on Drew to help me with something that I thought, I bet I could spend a week and figure this out, or I could just have Drew solve my problem in a matter of hours. So associations like the Better Together Association, there are definitely others. There are Facebook groups, again, that copywriter club. I see people do shout outs all the time for how do you solve this? Where do you go? How would you address this? So there's never been a better time to connect with other people. I hear people say, now everyone's online and, they're disconnected from everyone else. And the opposite is true. You have a community everywhere you want one. It can be LinkedIn. It can be, you could make your own. Heck, if you wanted to, you could have a cadre of half a dozen people that cover all the bases. You could have a writing partner, so I don't know if that answers your question, but I don't mind working alone. I find that with my different jobs, I always have a client. So if there's something I want clarity on, I won't hesitate to say, can we talk this through? Or if I'm working with a graphic designer, then we'll have conversations about the challenge. So I'm alone exactly as much as I want to be.
Yeah, I just want to add to that. That I feel, I totally feel that. I mean, as a programmer, it can be, you know, very isolating to write a piece of code and then just have no one to look at it. Like, I have no idea if what where I'm at. But also echoing what Sarah said with going to the client, and I think especially with copywriting, as I've been a client myself, and having someone come to me and saying, hey, I'm just having trouble working this out, and I just need to bounce some ideas. Can we take some time and talk about it? That makes me feel like, oh wow, like you're not sitting there silently, you know, not getting something. You're being proactive and coming to me. And then also, yeah, finding those groups online or in your community, and building that sort of that solidarity. I mean, if you're doing copywriting in UX, you could certainly find you know, a person like me who often needs copywriting help. Like I write a lot, and as Sarah can attest, my grammar can be god awful, and I need help feeling even just confident putting writing out. So there's these like good synergies you can find with other people in your community to support each other. You know, I think I need the grammar help, but also I'm very good at putting together ideas and articulating things. So that those collaborators are out there waiting for you, because you're not the only person having that challenge. Well, we're about at the hour, so is there any last burning questions? Anything that you want to share, Sarah?
What else can I say?
Well, I have a prompt for you, if you don't.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I have what's our closing word?
Oh, a good word. Oh, I have so many that I like. I was going to say, actually, I will answer your question, but I was going to say to Margaret that one app that I really like, that I use a lot, is Evernote. And I don't know if you've ever used it, but it all syncs in the cloud. And shamefully, I have the free version of it, but it enables me to keep lists of words. And I have a whole bunch of them. So hold on just a second. I have a notebook called Words. I have terrible words, words that sound good, eggcorns, good words, malaphors, fun words I can probably never use, and words I'd like to use. So I'm going to go under good words. I'm going to go with, oh, see, some of them just sound good. Exculpatory. Rhapsodize.
Whoa, hold on. Don't give them all away. We got plenty more episodes to go through, Sarah.
Oh, I've got dozens. Anyway.
What was that first one?
The first one, was, hold on. It was exculpatory. You know, exculpatory evidence that gets you off the hook. I just like the way it sounds. Oh, so many good ones. Here's one that's super short. Scamp.
What's a scamp?
I think kind of a naughty troublemaker.
Oh, like a scoundrel.
Yeah.
But like smaller, maybe.
But I should probably validate that, because I don't want to mislead anyone. So
look, the viewers will do their own research.
You would think.
Yeah,
People ask me questions all the time, and I think, couldn't you just look that up?
Let's say goodbye so I can turn the recorder off.
Oh, fine. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.